You're really desperate to close this deal, huh?
I went to a business meeting with one of our key clients as a sales representative. However, Kimberly, the department head, tore up the contract in front of me during the conversation, even scattering the fragments over my head. I suppressed my rage at Kimberly's careless actions.
Kimberly, look behind you.
But then Martin, the CEO of the company, showed up looking angry and started interrogating Kimberly. Knowing that her once dazzling career was probably coming to an end made me feel relieved. Nevertheless, I asked Martin for something. I'm Sean Mess, and I'm 41. Warm wood embedding is our specialty at the wood processing company where I work in the sales department. I'm making good progress as a manager right now, but my supervisor has hinted that it could be time for me to start a family. I've been making an effort to go to singles events and spend my weekends seeking for a companion because I'm single, but I haven't found anyone who seems like a good fit. In the meantime, there are an increasing number of marriage announcements at work. I'm getting married, my younger co-worker announced, and I congratulated him. However, I was secretly growing more nervous.
But because I was at work, I changed my concentration and concentrated on my responsibilities.
I had a business meeting with a large furniture maker today, so it was a significant day. They regularly score first in the furniture category on internet sales platforms, and their high-quality and pricey products make them well-liked even abroad. Our company's recognition will soar if I can demonstrate this renowned manufacturer our technology and land a contract.
Being the reason for this accomplishment, I might even hear rumors of a promotion for myself.
I became more confident the more I visualized successful outcomes. I shouted to my coworkers, I'm leaving for the meeting after packing the required paperwork into my bag. Good luck to me. A blast of heat struck my face as I went outdoors to their cries of good fortune. We've been in the midst of a severe heat wave lately, with temperatures hitting 95 degrees and TV continuously warning of the dangers of heat stroke. I took sure to drink enough of water before traveling to the client's offices to prevent being impacted by the heat.
I'm Shan from Georgia CFT, and I have an appointment at 2 p.m.
I informed the receptionist my name when I arrived at the headquarters, and she promptly showed me to the meeting room where I would wait for my business opponent. I was drinking water from my bottle when the door opened and I heard a knock.
I apologize for keeping you waiting, Sean.
It was the head of the department, Kimberly. She was 45, but her face was stately and elegant. She and I had previously exchanged business cards at a shared networking event. I spotted an opportunity when she expressed interest in our products, so I set up this appointment.
Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciate it.
I immediately stood up and greeted Kimberly. In the next moment, she looked me up and down from my toes to the top of my head and let out a snort. Coming in all sweaty without caring about your appearance? Are you underestimating our company or what? On my way here, I had been exposed to the intense heat and was sweating profusely from my forehead. I hurriedly wiped it with a tissue, but it was no use. The tissue was soon soaked.
Well, whatever. Let's get straight to the business.
Kimberly, who had frowned at my appearance, briskly headed to the conference room. I followed her, feeling a bit flustered. Even though she clearly showed a negative attitude, I mentally steeled myself to recover. Once we arrived at the conference room, I immediately pulled out the documents and started the negotiation with a strong determination to make this a success. I passionately presented to Kimberly, but once again she snorted at me. Her attitude had been bothering me since earlier, so I decided to speak up.
If there's anything that concerns you, please feel free to point it out.
I wondered if there was something wrong, but Kimberly, with a brazen attitude, crossed her legs.
You're really desperate to close this deal, huh? What?
Feeling insulted, I was left speechless as Kimberly tore up the documents I handed her and scattered them to pieces over my head. I had meticulously prepared for this day, even working overtime at times, and I thought I had completed the best materials. Despite this, Kimberly sneered at my presentation and looked down on me, saying,
If you want me to sign a contract, get on your knees and beg.
Suppressing my anger at her extreme rudeness, I suddenly noticed someone standing behind her, and I couldn't help but tremble.
The trembling wasn't out of fear, but from trying to hold back my laughter. Kimberly, look behind you.
The The moment she turned around, Kimberly let out a pitiful shriek.
Dick.
It was Martin, the CEO of the company, standing right behind her. Martin glared at her with a furious expression. It was clear to anyone that he was extremely angry. Keeping his eyes locked on her, he finally spoke. I happened to be passing by the conference room and heard your voice. Kimberly, what have you done to Sean?
Oh, well, that is...
Realizing that Martin had overheard everything, Kimberly's face twisted with discomfort.
Well, just as you told Sean, why don't you tell me the same thing? Seeing Kimberly hesitate, I answered in her place. She said, you're really desperate to close this deal.
Kimberly shot me a sharp glare and let out a small, annoyed click of her tongue. But as soon as Martin cleared his throat, she was back to being nervous.
Sean, did she say anything else to you?
When Martin asked me, I recalled everything that had happened since I arrived at their office. Kimberly misunderstood my sweaty appearance and thought I was disrespecting their company. That's not true. I only pointed out that his appearance was untidy.
Kimberly quickly tried to defend herself, but Martin scolded her. You always commute by car, so you wouldn't know coming to our office in this heat is no small feat.
Exactly. With temperatures consistently exceeding 95 degrees, when we scheduled the meeting, I had actually suggested holding it remotely. That way we could both stay in cool rooms and avoid going out. I thought it was a good suggestion, but Kimberly firmly rejected it. If you want to continue doing business with us, show it through your actions. We're not so lenient that you can secure a contract without putting in the effort.
My deepest apologies. I'll visit your office on the scheduled day.
In the end, I was pressured into visiting in person. I pulled out my water bottle, showing Martin that I had been properly hydrating. I sweat a lot from drinking too much water, and I ended up making Kimberly uncomfortable.
I apologize.
Not at all. Hydrating to prevent heat stroke is absolutely the right decision. As I apologized, Martin quickly stepped in to back me up. Then I turned to Kimberly and gave her a smile.
Thank you so much for pointing out the importance of appearance.
Perhaps because Martin was there, Kimberly seemed flustered and showed a bitter expression.
No, not at all. If it's still hot, let's turn up the air conditioning, shall we?
When she quickly lowered the temperature on the air conditioning, the torn documents flittered to the floor.
Oh, what's...
Martin bent down to pick up a piece of paper that had fallen near his feet, looking at it curiously.
Oh, that's my document that Kimberly tore up. Tore up?
Upon hearing my words, Martin glared at Kimberly with an even more furious expression. She had already lost her nerve since Martin arrived, and now her face was completely pale.
Why did you tear up Shan's documents? That's because...
Kimberly, sweating nervously, glanced between Martin and me, trying to gauge our reactions. Her once confident demeanor had vanished, and she now looked as uneasy as a petty thief caught in the act. I had hoped she would show some remorse, but when she blurted out,
I didn't do it out of malice. I was deeply disappointed.
I only did it because I expected C to produce even better documents. You could say it was an act of tough love. Rather than apologizing, Kimberly defiantly admitted that she deliberately tore the documents. For someone who had looked at me as if I were beneath her, it was laughable to hear her talk about love.
So when you threw the pieces on my head, was that out of love too?
I peeled a piece of paper off my head and held it up for Kimberly to see. When she threw it on me, the sweat on my head caused the paper to stick, making it difficult to remove. I had put a lot of effort into creating those documents to introduce our products, so it really hurt when they were torn. Martin's eyes widened in shock, and then he started trembling with anger, shouting at Kimberly.
Kimberly, how could you do such a thing to Shah? Frightened, she backed away as if trying to escape. Did you really think you were above him and act all high and mighty? No, I didn't mean that at all. Then apologize to Shah right here, right now.
Following Martin's command, Kimberly lowered her head. Alongside him, he said, Joan, I sincerely apologize for the disrespectful behavior of my subordinate. It was a failure in my management. I am deeply sorry. Kimberly also stammered out an apology, but inside I felt conflicted. The only reason Kimberly apologized was because Martin forced her to. If he hadn't happened to walk by the conference room or stormed in, she probably wouldn't have shown any remorse at all. She may have acted superior to someone in a lower position, but she couldn't stand up to someone above her. I wished I could have been the one to put Kimberly in her place. Once I leave, she'll likely be severely reprimanded by Martin and might even lose her job. If that happens, I'll never get another chance to show her up. In order to prevent something like this from happening again, Kimberly will face strict punishment.
Oh, could you please not fire her? Martin and Kimberly were left speechless by my words.
Although I can't forgive Kimberly's actions, the truth is that my presentation didn't resonate with her. I realize now that I lacked the necessary skills.
Sean, you're such a kind person.
Kimberly, relieved that she wouldn't be fired, looked at me with teary eyes. Feeling a chill from her gaze, I ignored her and spoke to Martin instead.
I'll be taking my leave now. I look forward to maintaining a good relationship with your company moving forward. Thank you, Chan. We truly appreciate your understanding. Let me walk you out.
The three of us headed outside together. It was early evening, but the sun was still in the sky and the thick humidity made me feel lightheaded.
It's still so hot even in the evening. It must have been even hotter during the day. Thank you for coming all the way to our office. Martin, looking genuinely concerned, apologized, and I thanked him in return.
Thank you for your concern. I'm quite resilient, so there's no need to worry. I smiled, trying to show that I was fine, and Martin let out a relieved sigh. When I glanced over at Kimberly, she looked very uncomfortable in the heat, her face contorted in distress. I hear you usually commute in an air-conditioned car. This heat must be tough on you. I teased her playfully, and sweat began to pour from her forehead, ruining her makeup.
Martin, can I go back inside now? What are you talking about? Go buy Shaw a drink before he leaves in this heat.
Kimberly was forced to run to the vending machine by Martin. When she returned with a sports drink, sweat was dripping down her face.
Thank you for going out of your way. I'll enjoy it.
It seemed that the heat had gotten to her even more after running, and she struggled to even respond. Her once neatly worn shirt was now stained with sweat, making her look quite disheveled.
Would you like a tissue? Your appearance is quite untidy. No, thank you.
Kimberly wiped her sweat with her own tissue, but in doing so, her makeup came off, revealing deep wrinkles. Not wanting to stare any longer as it would be rude, I quickly headed home while they saw me off. A few days later, I received a phone call from Martin, who apologized again. Although Kimberly wasn't fired at my request, she was demoted as punishment for ruining the deal and for her disrespectful behavior towards a client. She was reassigned from the headquarters to a local branch office. Although the deal fell through, I decided to use this experience to motivate myself to work even harder. However, even days after the meeting, I occasionally remembered Kimberly's teary gaze and felt a shiver down my spine. Since she didn't have a wedding ring on her finger, she is probably single. I too want to leave my bachelor life behind, but work keeps piling up, making it hard to attend singles events or social gatherings. Even during work, I've started paying more attention to my appearance and fitness. I've been going to the gym to make a good impression on potential partners. At first, working out was tough, but I've grown to enjoy it and I can feel myself getting stronger. Soon, I completely forgot about Kimberly and found fulfillment in both my work and personal life. A month after the meeting, my hard work finally paid off and I successfully secured a contract with another major company. Our company's development team had invented a new material made from recycled waste, obtained a patent, and integrated it into a new product line. This lightweight, durable, and environmentally friendly material was perfect for making beds and desks, and soon various manufacturers approached us for licensing agreements. Thanks to this breakthrough, our company's recognition soared, and we established connections with major corporations. As a result of securing the contract, I was promoted to department head and my salary doubled. When I updated my annual income on the matchmaking site profile, I was pleasantly surprised by the sudden influx of interest from many women. Looks like a high income really is attractive. I chuckled to myself. But at the same time, I was enjoying this new wave of popularity. One day, my boss informed me that I was being assigned to a branch office to help train new employees. With the physical strength I gained from working out at the gym, I enthusiastically responded, "Leave it to me." After arriving at the branch office, I focused on training the new hires, and soon enough, their skill levels began to improve noticeably. When teaching my subordinates, I advised them, regardless of rank, always use polite language during work hours. Our company has always upheld the motto, courtesy, even among close associates, and it's mandatory for superiors to use polite language when speaking to their subordinates. Because of this, no one becomes emotional and there are no overbearing bosses. As a result, no employees leave due to interpersonal issues, and our company boasts a low turnover rate. We may not be a large company, but I hope we can appeal to recent graduates and job applicants by showcasing our strengths. While the younger employees were out on sales calls, I was handling tasks on my computer in the office. It was still scorching hot outside, and I had told them to return as soon as possible. Just as I was about to go buy drinks before they got back, the office intercom buzzed. Who could it be? I didn't have any appointments today. Curious, I headed to the entrance of the office. There, standing in front of me, was Kimberly. Huh? Kimberly? The department head back then? And you're Sean? She was sweating, probably from walking around in the heat. She looked shocked to see me, but for some reason she also seemed pleased. Why are you here? This is my branch. I work just one stop away, and I came here from there. It turns out that my assigned branch and Kimberly's reassigned location were coincidentally close to each other. When I heard she had been demoted, I thought I'd never see her again. I had planned to get my revenge someday, but now that she appeared so suddenly, I wasn't sure how to react. As I frowned at her, Kimberly wiped the sweat from her forehead and quickly straightened her shirt. I'm not a department head anymore. I've been demoted and am now just a regular employee. Oh, that's right. Until this moment, I had forgotten about Kimberly's existence. Now that we'd unexpectedly run into each other here, I wasn't sure how to handle the situation. So I glanced up at the sky. In the afternoon, the sun was high in the sky, and the heat was even more intense. But then I realized this was a great opportunity to show her up. So I puffed out my chest and said, actually, after you were demoted, I was promoted to department head. Ha! Kimberly was shocked to learn that our roles had reversed. In my mind, I thought, how about that? I can achieve great things too, with a smug look on my face. So what brings you here today? Actually, I'm out here doing sales, promoting our company's products. It seems that after being demoted, Kimberly was tasked with doing the same sales work as a regular employee. I never would have expected the once arrogant Kimberly to be out here sweating and doing sales rounds. I never imagined I'd run into you again, Sean. Well, I've been assigned to this branch, so here I am. Despite what must have been an awkward reunion, she looked at me with an oddly intense gaze. Uncomfortable under her stare, I averted my eyes and said, So you're here for sales, right? I'll at least listen to what you have to say. Oh, thank you. I could have turned her away at the door, but remembering how she had treated me before, I decided to see just how good she was at sales now. As I led her to the company's reception room, I heard her mumble, "This must be fate." Hoping to avoid any trouble, I sat down across from Kimberly, but she just kept staring at me. Have you been going to the gym? You look so much more rugged and handsome than before. Suddenly complimented on my appearance, I was caught off guard.
Thanks? I've always been into strong, muscular men, and you're just my type, Sean.
She started rambling on about unrelated topics, not getting to the point of her visit at all. Annoyed, I firmly steered the conversation back on track.
If you're not here to talk business, then please leave. I'm sorry. I was just so happy to see you again.
Blushing, she handed me the documents. The Kimberly I remembered was quick to criticize appearances and often used her position to belittle others. But now, despite being demoted, she seemed much more subdued. Her drastic change in behavior left me feeling both confused and suspicious. Once she was ready, Kimberly launched into her sales pitch like a machine gun. As you probably know, our company offers high-quality furniture tailored to meet a variety of needs. She kept speaking faster and faster, not even pausing to see if I was following along.
Unable to keep up with her rapid-fire delivery, I listened in a daze.
So what do you think?
Huh?
Before I realized it, her pitch was over and she was looking at me with anticipation. I glanced back at the material she had handed me before starting and replied, "Forgive me for being blunt, but your sales pitch was terrible." What she had seemed so confident, but from my perspective it felt like being caught in a runaway train. You continued talking without waiting for my responses, blasting through your pitch like a machine gun with no regard for whether I was listening. That's not how a salesperson should behave.
But I tried my best.
Kimberly's shoulders slumped under the weight of my harsh critique. But I wasn't done yet.
Especially this material. Did you create it yourself?
Yes, I wrote it to make our products easy to understand.
I flipped through the pages, pointing out a specific section.
There are no concrete numbers, and the text is riddled with typos. Even a child could write something full of empty platitudes. As I continued my scathing evaluation, Kimberly's face turned redder by the moment. Then I delivered the final blow. I was curious to see the capabilities of a former department head from a major company, but this was a huge disappointment.
That's so cruel.
Crushed by my assessment, Kimberly's face crumpled and she looked like she was on the verge of tears. I was about to ask her to leave, but she stubbornly refused to give up.
Please, I'm begging you. If I don't get good results, I'll lose my job.
That's not my concern. Please leave. Since her demotion, Kimberly had been met with cold stares from her coworkers, who knew the reason for her transfer. On top of that, if she didn't improve her sales performance, Martin had warned her that she might be fired for incompetence. She was running out of time, which is why she was so desperate to succeed in sales, no matter what it took. Had she not looked down on me and acted so disrespectfully, she could have remained a department head at the main office. But now she was suffering the consequences of her own actions.
I deeply regret how I treated you, Sean. If you have any pity for me, please sign the contract.
Tears streaming down her face, she held out the contract and a pen. Although I felt a pang of sympathy for her as a fellow salesperson, I hadn't forgotten how she treated me.
I won't be signing anything. If you don't leave now, I'll have to contact Martin at the main office. Tattling to Martin? That's so low.
Kimberly, her contract rejected, glared at me through her tears.
Just because you've gotten a bit more attractive, don't get cocky.
Huh? But I have to admit, Kimberly, it's thanks to you that I started paying more attention to my appearance.
I said it casually, and she suddenly stopped crying and blushed again.
So does it mean you became handsome for me? Her unexpected comment left me speechless. The reason I started taking care of my appearance was for myself, not for her. She was just a catalyst. You're reading way too much into this. Aren't you misunderstanding something here?
But you're not wearing a wedding ring, so you're single, right? We're around the same age, and I think we make a great couple.
When she smiled, a shiver ran down my spine. I had sensed her intense gaze when we first met again, and now it was clear. She had feelings for me. I never imagined that someone I found so difficult to deal with would end up liking me. Even though I'd forgotten about her, having a woman with whom I had such a rocky history suddenly show interest in me was anything but pleasant.
To make sure Kimberly gave up, I steeled myself and said firmly, "I have no intention of marrying someone who looks down on others. Please leave." When I glared at her, she was shocked and started crying again. "You're such a cruel man."
Kimberly grabbed her bag and stormed out of the office. Finally, it was quiet again, and I felt relieved. Just then, the younger employees returned from their sales rounds, and we all took a break to hydrate. An hour later, as I was sorting documents with the team, the office intercom buzzed again. Great. Another cold call. Annoyed, I asked one of my subordinates to handle it, but he quickly returned looking alarmed. When he told me who was at the door, I was so surprised that everyone in the room stood up. Police? What's going on? I wondered if someone had committed a crime, but there was no one in the branch who could have done anything wrong. Thinking it might just be a routine patrol, I decided to see what was happening. Several police officers entered, saying, "We received a report that someone here was being harassed." Harassment? By whom? As I voiced my confusion, a familiar woman stepped out from behind the officers. It was him. He harassed me. Arrest him. Kimberly. Apparently, after being sent away, Kimberly ran to the police station and reported that I had harassed her. The officers glared at me suspiciously, clearly thinking something was off. Wait a minute. This is a misunderstanding. I quickly tried to explain, but they responded, "We'll hear the full story at the station," and began leading me toward the police car. If this kept up, I'd be treated as a criminal and cause trouble for company. Just as I was frantically trying to think of a way out of this, Kimberly suddenly said, "Wait." She stopped the officers and turned to me. "If you don't want to be arrested, sign the contract and marry me." What? Her demand shocked not only me, but also the officers. "If you marry me, I'll forgive everything." It seemed Kimberly had used the police as leverage to secure both a contract and a marriage proposal. Rather than feeling angry, I was filled with disgust at her underhanded tactics. The officers, struggling to keep up with the sudden turn of events, decided to hear both sides before heading to the station first. Kimberly claimed that when we were alone, I had persistently harassed her, refusing to take no for an answer. I kept telling him no, but he kept touching my hands and body. She even faked tears to gain the officer's sympathy. But hearing her lie made me furious. "Stop making things up. You're the one who showed up uninvited." I immediately asserted my innocence to the officers. To convince them, I knew I needed solid evidence. When they asked if I had any evidence, I racked my brain. That's it. We have security cameras. There are security cameras installed throughout the office, including the reception room. If we check the footage, it should show the interaction between Kimberly and me. Hearing this, Kimberly began to sweat and look visibly shaken. "Wait, are you really going to check it?" Of course, I'm not about to have my life ruined over a false accusation. I led the officers to the security room to show them the recording footage. As expected, it clearly captured everything that happened between Kimberly and me. When the officers saw how she had been flirting with me, they quickly shifted their suspicion from me to her. While unable to talk her way out of it, Kimberly was clearly panicking. She had filed a false report, mobilized the police, and tried to frame me for something I didn't do. What she did was a serious act of harassment. This is not how someone working for a major company should behave. Did the heat get to your head? Please forgive me. Kimberly apologized, begging for forgiveness. Why would you make a report like that? I got angry when you refused a contract, and I thought that if I threatened you with arrest, you'd marry me. When pressed for an explanation, she confessed her motives in a small voice. Her selfish reasoning angered not just me, but the officers as well. Seeing our reactions, Kimberly hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, but it's true that I'm in love with you, Sean." What? Kimberly admitted that she fell for me a month ago, on the day of the business meeting. Although she had been scolded by Martin and thought she was going to be fired, she said she fell in love with me when I said, "Please don't fire her." I admired your masculinity back then, Sean. I tried to give up after being demoted, but when we met again, I felt it was fate. She gazed at me with a love-struck expression, but all I felt was unease. Having her bring the police here out of spite made me feel nothing but discomfort. I wasn't offending you. I just wanted to make you eat your words, I told the department head back then. I made sure to clarify that I had no interest in her and said firmly, I don't like you. Kimberly, everything you do creeps me out. You think I'm creepy? How can you say such a horrible thing to a woman? Denied. Kimberly became emotional and tried to grab me, but the officers quickly restrained her. All she could do was scream, You heartless jerk. You led me on. Marry me now. No, I won't. After watching security footage, the officers were convinced of my innocence. I also told them about my previous trouble with Kimberly. Hearing about her past behavior, the officers sympathized with me, saying, That must have been tough. Finally, I was able to prove my innocence, and I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Thank goodness. I'll leave the rest of the police. This is not good at all. If this keeps up, I'll get caught. Please help me. As I sighed with relief, Kimberly started pleading for help. She struggled fiercely as the officers tried to lead her to the police car. I don't want to end up alone for the rest of my life. As she shouted, I slowly approached her. The officers warned me it's dangerous to get too close, but I stood in front of her anyway. Seeing me, Kimberly looked at me with hopeful eyes. So you do care about me after all? But to her dreamy gaze, I replied, Actually, I have a girlfriend. I'm planning to propose to her soon. What? In truth, during my time of matchmaking, I was introduced to a woman by a mutual acquaintance, and our relationship developed from there. My girlfriend is a year younger than me and runs her own cosmetics company. She's classy, considerate, and straightforward, and we clicked right away. Our relationship has been going well, and I've already bought an engagement ring, so I'll be leaving now. I hope you find someone good soon, too. Kimberly. That's not fair. Devastated, she was led to the police car and taken to the station. Later, Kimberly underwent a long interrogation and was fined for filing a false report. Martin, who had been informed by me, rushed to the station and harshly reprimanded her. A few days later, Martin visited the branch where I worked and deeply apologized to me. I could have pressed charges for business obstruction and defamation, but we settled the matter privately after receiving a large compensation. Unfortunately, I had to cut ties with his company. I couldn't forgive a company that allowed one of their employees to behave so disgracefully. Afterward, Kimberly was promptly dismissed without further discussion due to her actions during the incident. She desperately pleaded for forgiveness until the end, but it was clear there was no room for leniency, and she was given no chance for redemption. If she had given up on me and focused on her work, she might have been able to regain trust and avoid being fired. But Kimberly was so desperate to get married that she went extreme lengths to find a partner. When she saw me again, she convinced herself that it was fate. She tried to marry me by any means necessary, but in the end, she was rejected and lost her job. Later, Kimberly married a wealthy man, but it turned out he was a con artist who stole all her savings, leaving her penniless. Having lost everything due to her impatience in both work and marriage, Kimberly had to start over from scratch. However, by the time she got back on her feet, it would likely be difficult for her to find a husband due to her age. Meanwhile, after the incident, I proposed to my girlfriend, and we had a beautiful wedding. We invited everyone who had supported me, including my coworkers, and received their warm congratulations. Afterward, I purchased a lovely new home, and my wife and I began our happy new life together. Meeting the love of my life made me feel like the happiest man alive.
She flipped her hair as though dismissing me was a formality and remarked, We don't need old men like you dragging us down.
Stanley Rowe is my name. For the last 18 years, I, 59, have served as the operations manager of Harper Machinery in Indianapolis, Indiana. He was a steady hand that kept the wheels going at a company that produced industrial equipment for half the factories in the Midwest, not the type of man who spoke or demanded attention at meetings. I simply gave Vanessa a mocking smile gave her a single nod, and left her office. There were no fights, threats, or drama, just a meticulous clearing of my desk while the younger employees looked away. I had trained each and every one of them, some of whom had been employed as teenagers and are now adults with families. However, while I put nearly 20 years of my life into a cardboard box, no one said. 4 eerie years ago, Charles Harper found the business by hand. Began with a single lathe in his garage, and with perseverance and a reputation for dependable equipment, grew it into a $30 million company. When his health began to deteriorate, he personally chose me to oversee operations. He had stated, "You are the only person I trust to not take shortcuts." Now, his 28-year-old daughter, Vanessa, who has a business degree and has lived in Miami for 2 years, had determined that the company required modernization and fresh perspectives, code to eliminate anyone who could recall the days before spreadsheets took the place of common sense. I experienced an odd serenity as I carried that pitiful box of personal belongings to my pickup, because there was a very specific phrase in my employment contract that Vanessa was unaware of and hadn't even bothered to examine. Charles himself had demanded a severance payment equivalent to 2 full years' salary in the event that I was fired without cause in order to prevent me from being lured away by rivals. I put the box in the passenger seat and sat with my hands on the steering wheel for a minute. I could see the manufacturing floor via the windshield, equipment that I had kept up myself, systems that I had put in place. I had employed people who were about to discover what occurs when institutional knowledge leaves. I didn't scream as I left the parking lot or slammed the door. Turned the key, put the truck in gear, and went home to phone Harold Preston, a friend of mine who was a lawyer and had been waiting for a reason to take on a case this simple. I had never been the ostentatious kind. I was married to my wife, Linda, for 29 years before she passed away from cancer 4 years ago. Raised 2 successful children, a daughter teaching 3rd grade in Cleveland, and a son working for an engineering firm in Denver. Dependability and constancy had been the cornerstones of my life.
I had applied the similar strategy to Harper Machinery.
Charles Harper was more than a manager. Since my own father vanished when I was 11 years old, leaving my mother to raise 3 boys on a secretary's salary, he served as a father figure I never truly had in many respects. At 41, having recently been laid off from a failing car plant and possessing only practical experience and a mechanical engineering degree from a community college, Charles had taken a chance on me. During my interview, Charles had stated, "Credentials don't build machines. Sensible and skilled men do." Within 2 years, he had elevated me to operations manager. After work, Charles and I weren't the kind to go out to bars or go fishing together. However, we shared a respect that extended beyond the office. He was the one who, without my asking, rearranged my schedule when Linda became ill so that I could attend all of her treatments.
Family first, Stanley. Always.
The first warning sign came about a year ago when Vanessa started showing up at meetings, fresh out of business school, carrying a leather portfolio and trailing a cloud of expensive perfume, talking about synergy and market disruption. I catch Charles wincing sometimes at her suggestions, proposals that would have gutted our quality control or outsourced components we'd always made in-house.
But he never contradicted her publicly, just quietly fixed things afterward.
"She needs to learn, Stanley," he told me one afternoon, leaning against my office doorframe. "Some lessons can't come from books." The second warning was when Charles announced his retirement 3 months ago. Heart problems, he said, though I suspected it was more about succumbing to Vanessa's pressure. He looked defeated when he handed me the updated organization chart with Vanessa's name at the top. "I made her promise to keep the core team intact," he'd said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The experience you all bring is what makes this place work." I just nodded, but something in my gut tightened. The way Charles wouldn't look directly at me, like he knew what was coming but couldn't bring himself to say it. The morning after my termination, I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing my employment contract with Harold when my phone rang. Charles's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer it. Almost. But 18 years of respect doesn't vanish overnight. "Stanley." His voice sounded strained. "What the hell happened yesterday?" "Ask your daughter," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Not angry, just stating facts. "I did."
She said you were. He paused, searching for words, resistant to the new direction. Said you were undermining her authority with the floor team.
I said nothing. Just let the silence stretch between us. Charles knew me better than that. Knew I'd never undermined anyone.
You're going to file, aren't you? He finally asked.
Already have, I replied. Harold Preston is handling it. Charles exhaled heavily.
I told her to look at the contracts. Told her before I stepped down that there were protections in place.
Another pause.
She said she cleaned the house yesterday. You, Thomas, Jennifer? Anyone over 50?
My jaw tightened. Thomas had been our head of engineering for 12 years. Jennifer ran the quality control lab like it was her personal kingdom, both irreplaceable in their own ways.
Is that the direction you wanted, Charles? Clearing out everyone who built the place with you?
You know it's not, he said, voice tired. But I gave her control. It's hers to run now.
I heard voices in the background on his end, one of them distinctly Vanessa's, sharp and demanding. I've got to go. The call ended abruptly.
I set the phone down and stared at my contract spread across the table. Section 12, Paragraph 3. In the event of termination without documented cause as defined in Appendix C, employees shall be entitled to severance compensation equal to 24 months of current salary.
Harold had highlighted it in yellow.
It's airtight, he told me earlier. They'll either pay or we'll take them to court, where we'll win, and they'll pay my fees too. I walked to the window overlooking my backyard. The maple tree Linda and I had planted when we first moved in 26 years ago now towered over the property. We nurtured it through 2 lightning strikes and a disease that nearly killed it. Patched it up, supported it, gave it what it needed to thrive.
Something shifted inside me.
This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about value, about recognizing what experience brings to the table, about respecting the foundation others built before you decide to renovate the house. I picked up my phone and called Thomas, then Jennifer. By noon, I'd spoken with every veteran employee Vanessa had asked. Some were shell-shocked, others furious, all of them worried about their futures. Take a breath, I told each of them. Check your contracts. Call Harold. Then I made one more call to Douglas Clean, owner of Precision Parts across town, a man who'd been trying to hire me away from Harper for years.
Still interested in that conversation? I asked him.
3 days after being fired, I sat across from Vanessa and Harper Machinery's corporate attorney in a downtown office. Harold Preston sat beside me, his weather briefcase open, my contract prominently displayed. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, not even looking at the document. We're implementing a new direction. That's cause enough. Harold, 67, with the patient demeanor of a man who'd seen every corporate trick, simply pointed to the highlighted clause. Termination without cause, as defined in Appendix C, requires severance equal to 24 months' salary, approximately $320,000 in Mr. Rose's case. The corporate lawyer, a young guy named Justin who looked fresh out of law school, scanned the contract with growing discomfort.
Miss Harper, the definition of cause here is quite specific. Performance issues, ethical violations, criminal acts.
He was resistant to change, Vanessa interrupted, crossing her arms. That's insubordination.
Where's the documentation?
Harold asked. Written warnings, performance improvement plans? Because Appendix C requires a documented pattern, not a single instance.
Justin flipped through a thin folder in front of him, finding nothing.
Vanessa's face tightened. Fine. So we pay him a few months' severance and move on.
24 months, Harold corrected. As stipulated.
That's ridiculous, she snapped. We'll offer 6 months. Take it or leave it. I stayed silent, watching her. In that moment, she reminded me of her father, the same stubborn set to her jaw. But Charles's stubbornness had always been in service of building something. Hers seemed aimed at tearing down.
Harold closed his briefcase.
Then we'll proceed with legal action. Discovery should be interesting, especially regarding the simultaneous termination of multiple employees over 50. Justin's eyes widened slightly. He leaned toward Vanessa and whispered something urgent. She brushed him off. "Before you make threats," Vanessa said to me, ignoring Harold completely, "you should know we're prepared to fight this. You'll be tied up in court for years." I finally spoke. "I've got time, and we'll make it known throughout the industry that you're difficult." She added, "Good luck finding another position at your age." That's when her father appeared in the doorway. I hadn't seen Charles since his retirement party. He looked thinner, paler, but his eyes were sharp as ever.
"Vanessa," he said quietly, "a word. We're in the middle of something, Dad. Now. Not a request."
They stepped outside through the glass wall of the conference room. I could see them arguing, Charles gesturing emphatically, Vanessa's posture growing more defensive. When they returned, Vanessa wouldn't look at me. "Justin," Charles said, "prepare the severance agreement as written in the contract."
"Dad," Vanessa started. Now."
Charles turned to me. "I apologize, Stanley. This isn't how I wanted things to end." I nodded once. Nothing more needed to be said between us. As Harold and I stood to leave, Vanessa stepped in front of me. "This isn't over. I'll be reviewing all vendor relationships. Any company that hires you can forget about doing business with Harper."
Charles paled at her words, but said nothing.
I just nodded again, thinking about my conversation with Douglas Clean the day before, about the partnership offer he'd made, about the niche market Harper had been ignoring for years that Precision Parts was poised to enter. "You're right about one thing," I told her. "It isn't over." The severance payment hit my account a week later, $320,000 minus taxes, more money than I'd ever seen at once. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Money wasn't the point. Neither was revenge, really. It was about something deeper. That same afternoon, I met Thomas Baldwin, our former head of engineering, at a diner halfway between our homes. The place was nearly empty at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just a couple of truckers at the counter and us in a back booth. "Harold got me a year's severance," he said, stirring his coffee without drinking it. "Not as good as your deal, but better than nothing. They want you to sign an NDA. Thomas nodded. "Can't talk about proprietary processes or business practices for 5 years. He gave a bitter laugh. 40 years in engineering, and suddenly I can't talk about my own work.
"You signing it?" "Don't see much choice. Got a granddaughter starting college next year." I pushed a business card across the table.
"Douglas Clean, Precision Parts." "He's looking for a consultant," I said. "Someone who understands precision hydraulics. No NDA required." Thomas stared at the card. "Harper would sue me if I took this." "Not if you're just advising on general industry standards. Nothing proprietary about that." He pocketed the card slowly. "What's going on, Stanley? This isn't like you stirring the pot." I hadn't told anyone about my arrangement with Douglas yet, but Thomas deserved to know. We'd worked side by side for over a decade. "I'm partnering with Precision," I said quietly. "Douglas is bringing me in to head up a new division. Specialized hydraulic components. The small batch, high margin stuff Vanessa thinks is a waste of time." Thomas's eyebrows shot up. "The custom work. Charles always said that was Harper's future, and Vanessa's killing it to focus on mass production. Thinks she can compete with overseas manufacturers on price." "She can't," Thomas said flatly. "Not with our labor costs." "I know. So does Charles." Thomas leaned forward. "Is that why you're telling me this? You think Charles is involved somehow?" I shook my head. "No, But I had lunch with Jennifer yesterday. She said Vanessa's been liquidating equipment. The specialized machinery Charles bought last year for the custom work. She's already sold half of it. That's over $2 million in equipment, Thomas said, eyes wide. At auction prices, probably got 30 cents on the dollar.
Thomas sat back, understanding dawning. She's stripping the company, converting assets to cash. I nodded. And guess who's been buying property in Miami? Jesus. Thomas ran a hand over his face. Does Charles know? I don't think so. He built that company for legacy, not liquidation.
We sat in silence for a moment, both processing what this meant, not just for us, but for the 100-plus employees still at Harper, for Charles's life's work.
What are you going to do? Thomas finally asked.
Build something better, I said simply, something that respects both the past and the future, with Douglas clean.
Thomas sounded skeptical. Douglas is just an investor.
He's seen years from retirement himself. Wants to back people who know what they're doing and step aside.
And let me guess, you need an engineer who understands hydraulics.
I smiled for the first time in weeks. The position's yours if you want it. Once your NDA is limited to actually proprietary information, not general knowledge.
Thomas studied me. This isn't just business for you, is it? It's personal.
It's about value, I said. About building something that lasts. That's all I've ever wanted to do. 2 months after my firing, I sat in Douglas Clean's office reviewing architectural plans for the new facility. The converted warehouse on the east side of Indianapolis would house Cornerstone Precision, our new venture specializing in custom hydraulic components.
The name had been Thomas's idea.
Build from the corners up, he'd said. That's how you make something that lasts. Douglas, a barrel-chested man with a full white beard and perpetually rolled-up sleeves, spread the supplier contracts across his desk. Machine shops confirmed, he said. They can deliver the first 5 units by next month, and the CNC programmer starts Monday. Douglas gave me a knowing look. Former Harper employee. Said you recommended us. I nodded. Jason Wright had been a Harper for 6 years. Brilliant with computer modeling. Criminally underpaid. Vanessa had cut his department's budget by 30% while doubling her own salary. He quit 2 weeks ago. How many does that make now? Douglas asked. 7. I replied, all top performers. Douglas whistled low. Harper's losing talent fast. People follow good leadership. I said, Vanessa's not providing it. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Still working in Harper's lab, but feeding me information. With her retirement 3 years away, she couldn't afford to leave, but she could certainly keep her eyes open. The message contained a photo of an internal memo. Production delays, quality control issues, 3 major clients threatening to pull contracts over missed deadlines. I showed it to Douglas, who adjusted his reading glasses to see better. Just as we predicted, he said. The brain drain's affecting output already. I pocketed my phone, feeling no satisfaction in the news. Harper employed families I'd known for years, people with mortgages, kids in college, parents in nursing homes. Their suffering wasn't my goal. We should reach out to Midwest Manufacturing, I said, referring to one of Harper's biggest clients. Let them know we'll be operational in 60 days. Douglas nodded, making a note. Already scheduled a meeting for next week. Their purchasing manager's eager to talk. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the warehouse floor below. Workers were installing the first pieces of equipment. The bones of something new, something built on respect for experience and innovation alike. My phone rang. Charles Harper's name on the screen. I should take this, I told Douglas, who nodded and stepped out, closing the door behind him. Charles, I answered. Stanley. His voice sounded tired, defeated. We need to talk. I'm listening. A heavy sigh. I know what you're doing. The new company. The Harper employees you're hiring away. I said nothing. It wasn't illegal. Wasn't even unethical. Just business. I'm not calling to ask you to stop. Charles continued. I'm calling to ask for your help. That caught me off guard. What kind of help? The kind that might save what's left of my company. He paused. Vanessa's been selling off assets, cutting corners on quality. The board's concerned. So am I. Why tell me this? Because you're the only one who knows every part of the operation, the only one who might see a path forward. Another pause. And because I should have listened to you months ago when you warned me she wasn't ready. I closed my eyes, thought about all those years working alongside Charles, building something we were both proud of, something that employed hundreds of people who trusted us to make good decisions. What exactly are you asking, Charles? Come to my house tonight. 7. Bring Thomas if he's willing. The board wants to meet to discuss options. Options? Yes. Charles's voice strengthened slightly, including a change in leadership. I looked down at the warehouse floor again, at our small but growing operation, at the future I'd been building out of the ashes of betrayal. I'll be there, I said finally, but I'm not promising anything. Fair enough, relief evident in his voice. And Stanley? Yes. Thank you for still taking my calls. 6 months after being fired, I stood in the back of Harper Machinery's main conference room. The quarterly all-hands meeting had just been called to order with Vanessa at the head of the table, flanked by her new executive team, most under 35, all looking nervous. I wasn't supposed to speak until the end. That had been the agreement with the board. Let Vanessa present her quarterly results first. Give her the chance to explain the 37% drop in revenue, the lost contracts, the quality control failures. She was halfway through presentation blaming market conditions and legacy inefficiencies when she noticed me. What is he doing here? She demanded, pointing in my direction. Charles, sitting quietly among the board members, nodded to the chairman, who stood. Vanessa, the chairman said, the board has reached a decision regarding the company's leadership. Her face went white. You can't be serious. Stanley, the chairman continued, turning to me, would you like to explain the new arrangement? I stepped forward, holding a folder, the same one Harold had prepared for my severance 6 months earlier, but with very different contents now. Harper Machinery is merging with Cornerstone Precision. I said, my voice steady. The board has approved the acquisition agreement this morning. Vanessa laughed sharply. This is absurd. I'm the majority shareholder. No, Charles said, standing slowly. You hold huvudsaklig. I maintain 51%, which I've now voted in favor of the merger. I slid the folder across the table to her. Cornerstone will absorb Harper's custom hydraulics division. The rest will continue under new leadership. My leadership, Thomas said, stepping in from the doorway. Vanessa flipped through the documents, her hands shaking. This is business. I finished for her, nothing personal. A year after the merger, I stood in the expanded production facility that now housed both Cornerstone Precision and Harper Custom Hydraulics. Workers moved efficiently between stations, the rhythm of machinery creating a symphony of productivity I'd missed during my months away. Charles joined me on the observation platform, leaning heavily on his cane. His health hadn't improved, but his spirit had. Watching the company thrive again had been the best medicine. Quarterly numbers came in, he said, handing me a report. Best in 5 years. I nodded, scanning the figures. Profit margins up. Employee retention stabilized. 3 new patents filed. Vanessa called yesterday, Charles said quietly. From Miami? I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. After the merger, she'd taken her settlement and disappeared. No volváis, no epalidis. She's starting a consulting firm, he continued. Asked if I'd invest. Will you? Charles shook his head. Told her come back to Indianapolis first. Learn the business from the ground up. The way I did, the way you did. And she hung up. He smiled sadly. But she called back this morning, asked if the offer still stood. Below us, I watched Jason training 2 new programmers on our latest system. Jennifer, in her lab coat, inspecting components with her characteristic precision. Thomas at a workstation, sketching a design modification by hand before transferring it to computer. Experience and innovation working side by side, not in conflict, not one replacing the other, but building something stronger together. You know, Charles said, when I wrote that severance clause in your contract, I never imagined how it would turn out. I smiled. Neither did I. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the company we'd both helped build continue to grow. Some lessons are expensive, but the ones that stick, the ones that change how we see the world, those are always worth the price.